worked on a project to find out how sick an astronaut would get before they wouldn't be able to work on a spaceship, and then once they got medication, how fast they would be able to come back to where they could work on the spaceship. They had done a number of research projects before that with bomber pilots and Air Force Academy students. They had a big machine that we had hooked up to a computer, and we had to run tests before they actually made us sick so we could see how we compared with the astronauts and stuff that had taken these tests.
Now, what kind of illness did you get?
Got tularemia.
Oh, wow.
As soon as they saw the effects, they gave me one pill, and I started coming out of it. You just don't want to do anything. You could lay down and die, and it wouldn't bother you. You had body aches, you had headaches. It's just a total deterioration of the body.
Were you worried that maybe you might not recover, or?
No, because like I said, they gave me this one pill, and now I'm considered that just like a vaccination shot. I'm immune to tularemia.
You're stronger than the rest of us.
So I could go to third world countries where they have it, and I would not be affected by it.
That's amazing. We want you around if that ever happens.
Yeah.
You know, often in the military, when you fight together, when you're in operation together, you're often bond. I guess it's similar in your case, huh?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I noticed it myself. You know, I was in the military. I got so close to people when you're working with the same goal in mind.
There were 10 of us that were on that project. And when you're living together for 5 weeks, 24 hours a day, you get pretty close. And when you have off time from basic training and stuff, we would go to a pizza shop and have pizza and just visit and get acquainted and become good friends.
So how's it feel? You know, you contributed to science. In fact, I've studied at Loma Linda University Medical School, and I go through PDR, and I've seen a lot of different things. And to know that you actually contributed to actually black and white scientific knowledge, how does it feel to contribute to science in that way?
Well, I think it gives you a pride. I'm probably as a patriotic person you can find. See, we would go down to Arlington Cemetery and see the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and watch the soldiers that guarded that and realize the camaraderie that they have. It's that bond.
Do you think that the men of Operation White Coat are heroes?
Personally, I probably don't think so. We just did a job, but people that know what we did and stuff, they call us heroes. They asked all of the white coats to come up to the rostrum at the front of the church, and I was at the back of the room, so I'm walking forward, and I just hear people applauding, and I don't think much about it until I turned around, and it was a standing ovation, the whole church. And that makes a very moving experience for you. Well, it was kind of like in the videos you were showing me. The guy said, this was my way of serving my country. Any Adventist that went into the military as a conscientious objector, whether it was a medic out in the field, or if it was a help in a hospital, or wherever they could help, was a hero. The church I grew up in was the first Adventist church that was built in Dakota Territory. My grandmother went to that church, my mother, and I went to that church till I got to the Army. It was a little country church that they eventually moved into one of the little towns of the area. And it's one of the few places you can find an Adventist cemetery. And it's a beautiful little cemetery. My great-grandparents, my grandparents, my parents, my son are all buried there.
Yeah. Let's talk about your son. Tell me about how he passed away.
He was riding his motorcycle one evening, and a lady was waiting for cars to go by, and she never saw him and turned left in front of him. And he lived for a week. We spent a lot of time at the Scottsdale Osborne Hospital.
Oh my goodness.
And one of his buddies from Academy was one of the emergency room nurses there. He went up to the emergency area, and He says, we've been trying to get a hold of you. Have you been home and seen the note on your desk? And he says, no. And he turned around, and there was his best friend. And it really, it was hard on him too. Because of our loss, 9 kids still have their fathers. A man in Tucson received his heart. A man here in Phoenix received one of his kidneys. A young girl in Tucson received his other kidney, and a highway patrolman in Salt Lake City received his liver.
Tell me about about the support group you had during that time. Where did it come from?
Our church. They just came and sat with us, prayed with us. I don't know, maybe a month or so, the pastor asked me if I could tell the church about Grant's organ donation. And I got up in church and was telling everybody about it. And I had more people come up to me afterwards and says, I don't know how you can do it. I says, well, it was something he wanted to do, and we supported him. And we have received an award from the state of Arizona for his organ donation. One of the people that worked in it, in fact, was a close friend of mine when I was growing up in South Dakota. We were in the first 8 grades of school together, and we got visiting. He was at that meeting that they gave this award out, and he says, well, I received a heart from a kid in California that was killed in a motorcycle accident. And so we got kind of another bond from that area.
You mentioned that about, I think what's amazing about this is that, what is it about, you were able, despite this tragedy, you were able to find the silver lining in it. I mean, you're so fine. You said, you know that verse, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. What is it about your faith? How did that transpire to taking something so negative, but yet you're talking today about how his death saved 9 more lives. Tell me about that, about how you're able to have such faith through these trying times.
It's your relationship with God. When we were taking his remains back to South Dakota to put in the cemetery, I was sitting in the church in Keene, Texas, and they had a big stained window up there with Christ holding a lamb with the sheep around him. And I felt God talk to me that day. He just says, don't worry about Grant. He cared for my animals as I care for my sheep. And I haven't had a worry since. We have to put our total trust in God. I look at a church, and you can sit there and look at the people in the church, and you have friends, but the total focus is on Jesus and the church.
Amen. Amen. Were you and Karen ever tried financially in your career, in your life?
Oh, about every month. But the thing is during that time, she wasn't putting a paycheck. I didn't have a job. But it's just like every time when you saw a spot and you needed money, had to pay the rent or you had to buy groceries and you just didn't have any money, we'd get a check in the mail. I was going to college and she was teaching, so we didn't have a lot of money. And she always relates to the story that she had 1 pair of shoes. She wore them all the time, whether it was during the weekend, going to church, teaching, whatever, that 1 pair of shoes. And after 3 years, they still look brand new. How God just takes care of you in many different ways that you don't think he is, and then you think back and say, wow, he really did take care of me.
What was the core reason or the center or the value that kept you faithful in tithes and offerings during that time?
God says to pay a tithe because that's his. And we've always found that as long as we paid tithe, everything's taken care of. Vision for the church is we have to focus Jesus in our lives. And in doing so, work together. The church does not need contention or anything like that. We're here for one purpose, to spread the message and to encourage new members so that they feel a part of the church, because they come out of churches, they come out of relationships that people may be upset with them because they changed religions. And we have to support and encourage them and the total focus is on Jesus.